Okay, people, welcome to this perhaps mother of all panels, you could say, especially when it comes to esports. So today here we're celebrating the rise of esports, and more specifically the impact that it has and opportunities that it provides. I think everyone in this room, and hopefully everyone in this room will have something to take away and apply to their business. Because we're talking about a broader definition than hardcore esports gaming today. The structure for the coming 45 minutes is that I'm going to introduce you to the panelists, so they can do it themselves, because they're all pretty good talkers, I must say. I've experienced that. After that, I have 5 minutes just showing some relationship between global trends and esports, and just sharing some thoughts on how big this whole movement is. Some data points there, because I'm a data fetishist, so I can't help it. And then after that, we have a couple of questions that'll guide us through, hopefully, the various aspects and glorious moments of esports now and in the future. So on the panel of this sport, and if you love visuals, I mean, esports is tremendous. Just Google around on esports event images, and this is the stuff that you find, a colorful business. So who are key people in this business? It's not really me, although I do try to report on this trend. It's more about Twitch, who actually is not here at the moment, but rumors are going that somebody from the Twitch office is running over the streets now, as their office is located very quickly, explaining the empty chair. First up, Craig Levine of ESL, Turtle Entertainment. I'll just go through the list and then you can do an introduction. Vincent Tucker, Logitech. James Grunke, with the mysterious picture on the slide. NVIDIA. And last but not least, Matt Wolf of Coke. Matt, maybe to start with you. 60 seconds, a brief introduction, your relationship to esports and your angle.
Thanks, Peter. My name's Matt Wolf. I'm Global Head of Gaming for Coca-Cola. I'm sure many of you have heard of Coca-Cola. And the reason why esports is such an interesting platform for us, really, is because, as Peter said, the amount of viewership and playership associated with it is pretty extraordinary. The audience is probably half filled up, and it's interesting because it's casual connect, and esports is pretty core, actually, still. So it doesn't surprise me, really. But in terms of numbers, it's not. In terms of numbers, it's pretty mass. We're talking about, and he's got the data, so I won't go into it. We're talking about the kind of numbers, the kind of viewership that for a certain gender and age split eclipses big events like the Super Bowl multifold. And as a big global brand like Coca-Cola, that's really interesting to us. So the trick for us is to authentically integrate our brand into that world and build value for players. And that's what we tried to do, and so far so good. We did a deal with Riot Games for League of Legends, and we've had a really excellent time so far with them in 2014. And looking forward, we don't plan to go anywhere. We plan to just continue to focus and try to win as many hearts and minds as possible from the community. So that's
it. Craig Levine from ESL. We are the world's largest independent esports organizer. We host online competitions, we fill stadiums, we produce the biggest events in the industry. So I did a recent event out in Frankfurt with a big Dota 2. We sold 23,000 tickets, fans, screaming Dota fans, beers, watching the games, enjoying the event, and celebrating sort of the world's best gamers is what we're all about.
1, 2. Hi, folks. My name is James Grunke. I'm Director of Esports for NVIDIA Corporation. We're based in Santa Clara County, Santa Clara, California. And we build graphics chips for PCs. We're the market leader in this segment. We have over 300 million GeForce GTX users, active users in the world right now. And esports is important to us because esports fans and players are our best customers. So we do numerous kinds of activities around esports, whether it's hosting tournaments, sponsoring tournaments, working with players and teams directly. Looking forward to the talk today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vincent Tucker, and I'm the portfolio manager for Logitech. So I'm responsible for all the products, all the gaming products that Logitech makes. I was also the person that headed up both sponsorships of the League Championship Series a few years ago, as well as acquiring relationships with a number of esports teams, including TSM, Cloud9, the Alliance, and many others all around the world.
Cool. Thanks, guys. First, a couple of thoughts to share with you on a general level. Oh, Kevin is gone from the slide, you can see. I was prepared for that. So, personally, from a company like Newzoo doing market research and helping our clients to understand trends, they expect us to come up with new thoughts about the market. And I think to put esports in a broader perspective is where the opportunity is for people like yourself. And I personally believe it ties all the trends going on in the global market together. And I'm going to show you how that works. First of all, I would like to celebrate with you the fact that I'm from the Netherlands. And we had the 3rd place in the World Cup for such a tiny little small country with less inhabitants than the LA area. And esports, a lot of people talk about prize money. You know, prize money is cool. So I looked up what our Dutch team earned with that 3rd place. So the FIFA gave them $23.5 million in prize money. And just a quiz question, does anybody know who that guy on the right-hand side is? He's putting the ball in the net, just a hint. It's Wesley Sneijder. He scored the most important goal against Mexico. No, it doesn't ring a bell, does it? So, but that single guy, so he got exactly $1 million, because a team in soccer has 23 players. So $1 million a player is the size of the prize money. Then we go to last weekend. So the prize pool of about 11 million to the winners. How many people are in the team? 5. So that's $1 million per player. So even on prize money, and Matt also talked about the reach pure in audience is comparable to those sports events, but the prize money now is as well. And if you do some calculation, $2.50 of the $10 that people put in every time they went for this compendium, 2.5 went to the prize pool. Where did the other 7.5 go? Oh, it actually went to the developers of the game. So the business model around the championship for a company, I think it is Valve, is about more than $20 million in revenues simply around the championship. It's not even spent in the game. People get virtual items. And it's an eye-opener that games are becoming entertainment brands with live events, with video streaming, and also earning money with their brand outside of the game, as people value it as entertainment. So esports could be the shiny ball in this, it's not really an epicenter, but say, what do you call this in English or in America? The ripple effect of a water drop or? Butterfly event? Oh yeah, butterfly effect. Yeah, the butterfly effect. So this beautiful ball of water on the top is esports. And press love esports. It's so in your face and so physical. So people write about esports pro gaming specifically. But don't forget that it's the incentive that companies that run games as a service, opposed to games as a product, has helped esports propel. They invested millions because if you have a game where it's all about the time that people engage, getting people to spend money and then more money, instead of a single moment of a box, the investment in esports suits this business model a lot more. And it's the sole reason why esports was a lot bigger in Asia up until a couple of years ago, because they have always had this business model. So there is a relationship. And if you understand the relationship, that might benefit you as a game developer or a publisher. What I find cool is that business models and this type of stuff is aligning on a global scale. Esports is big in Asia, it's big here. League of Legends is big here and there. Dota 2 the same. That's good. It's a purely global market. What helps a lot is the ability to stream video content from your game or capture video in another way. And it's consumer-generated content. Don't forget that. That's the most important part. And that adds to the viewership because the majority of people that love esports only watch. Combine that with watching videos across multiple screens all over the place. There's factors more time spent around game franchises now than only 3 years ago. And ultimately, that ends up in more spending. So if you look at the Casual Connect report that was distributed for free, Victor Kisley of Wargaming once said our ambition should be $200 billion in 2017. We might even reach that, surpassing the $130 billion spent on sports. If you like free stuff, we announced the eSports trend some time ago. It's all in old free reports on the Newzoo website. Hard numbers. I love hard numbers. This little image shows you that a bit more than half of all gamers in the US know the term esports. And that there's, if you combine the US and some Western European countries, almost 50 million people that to some degree like esports and are involved. As a viewer, you can see your 60% only watches, and not every day. 20% watches almost every day. And then there's approximately 20% of those, especially in the US, who actively participate. And they're not all on stage in the Staples Arena. They're doing amateur championship, other leagues online that these guys can tell you more about. This is, it's huge. Why are game companies involved? You can see here the blue are esports enthusiasts, green is all gamers. 24% of esports enthusiasts are big spenders when it comes to games. Understandable that game companies are willing to invest in this space. If you're into headsets or other peripherals, you can clearly see, and this is for China and Korea combined, that 21% of the Asian sports enthusiasts spend more than $100 for a headset, where it's only 8% for all gamers. So it's the commercial reason why companies maybe like Logitech and others are involved. And for Matt, it's important that he's reaching out to normal people, not the one-legged, unemployed persons without a budget or a taste for Coke. And the data also shows that people are even more normal as esports enthusiasts. They actually you have more chance of reaching people that have a full-time job than if you would target all gamers. So it's a rich target group. But back to the people that know it from the inside.
Peter, to add on to that, I mean, we're interested in all people.
Yeah,
all different
yeah,
demographics,
okay.
from a Coca-Cola standpoint.
Oh yeah. Okay, sorry about that, Matt. Oops. I asked him other things I shouldn't mention, and I still made a mistake. Matt, okay, to start off with you. Where were you, and when was the exact moment when you started to realize that esports was so big? Is there a certain moment or that you remember?
I mean, it was several years ago, to be fair, and I've known the Riot guys for a long time. So you know, they had identified opportunity in this sector. You know, sort of when they first started out, and I was sort of keyed into it through them a while ago. But I think, and it's had. I mean, look, for those of you who follow, I mean, I'm just curious of you in the audience. Can I see a raise of hands of people that actually know what esports is? Okay, so a lot of you. And do you play regularly? No? Few of you? How many of you view esports? So we have almost more viewers in the audience than players, yeah, which is really interesting. Something that I think if, you know, Kevin from Twitch were here, he'd probably be talking about the amount of viewership and viewership consumption as it relates to broadcast, but not to derail the question. I mean, I've known about it for a while. I really like it. I like it partly because, yes, it reaches a demographic that is nearly impossible to reach any other way, but that's not the whole reason why. It's because the people that play these games are super passionate about what they do. They love the experience, and it's very, there's a lot of camaraderie and there's a lot of social around it, and if you can somehow figure out a way to reach them, it's a pretty amazing thing. So you know, again, I've known about it for a while, but I think esports has enjoyed a few false starts and stops, and I think now it's at a point where it really has taken form and shape thanks to games as a service and some of the other stuff Peter's talking about.
Yeah, cool. And James, how long have you been in the esports business? Or take us back to your first esports experience and how it sort of has built up to where we are at now.
I guess my first experience in competitive gaming would have been 100 years ago when I was at Atari. This is early 90s.
1914.
But in terms of since esports actually existed, in 2011, I was transitioning over to the GeForce GTX group from the video codec group. And we're looking at activations. I'm on the campaign team. And we had done LANs and other things, but we had never done an online tournament. So we said, let's do an online tournament. So we got together with the game station and put together the GeForce StarCraft 2 Pro-Am. And we planned it out with them. We worked with Husky and Day9, set them up as casters, and worked with Sivo on the back end and built a nice portal for the tournament. And it came opening day for registration, and so we pumped an announcement a couple days ahead of that and flipped the switch on registration, and the servers got swarmed. They actually brought the servers down, and I remember going into work the next day and going to my boss, and kind of, our servers crashed under the weight of the people, and they went, cool. So I was like, so we end up running this tournament. We go through registration. It's a pro-am, so we had 72 invited invitational professional players, and we ended up with 9,300 amateur players. And it turns out that was the largest amateur tournament in the history of StarCraft. May still be, but with the 72 pro players, we drove over 14 million views with Husky and Day9 on the game station. We were absolutely floored by it, and so I've been focused on esports ever since, and it's an extremely important market for us.
Yeah, but it has been bigger for a longer time than some people know. And Craig, you told stories about setting up competitions when you were young or something. Can you tell us a little bit about it and take us up to the day of today?
Yeah, I just, like everyone else, just grew up kind of playing games, and I had my first competition like 2001. And it was, the basement of a ballroom, and you're going with your friends, and you're competing from teams all around the world, and just it's an exhilarating feeling in anything you do to have that feeling that you're the best at it. And I think we finished not quite #1, but that was a little bit of a taste of it. And for me, kind of the arrival of it, from my perspective, having seen that journey and kind of been working over those years to build it to that point. Was we did a world championship event with Intel last year, 2 years ago rather, in 2013, where we packed a stadium full of people, full of esports fans, no crazy sideshows or concerts or anything else, just esports. And for me, that was the most validating moment, when it was kind of like, okay, we've done it, this is for real. And obviously the Twitch viewership from it just kind of shows, to Matt's point earlier, that this is there's a real audience here, it's substantial, and it's not just some weird little side story of people making money playing video games.
Yeah, do you have some recent stats, as Twitch isn't here, because you work with Twitch a lot? What were the stats that really surprised you, that the whole office went, wow, what's going on here? The viewership of championship, or?
Yeah, that same World Championship this past year, in March, we had 73,000 people coming through the stadium over those 3 days. We had a League of Legends, StarCraft 2, and Counter-Strike tournament, and we had over 23 million viewing sessions just through that weekend alone. So as ESL, we're kind of producing those all over the world, but those are sort of the staggering numbers that I think you see when you've got the world's best gamers with great casters playing games that people enjoy.
Yeah. Vincent, where were you, and what fact sort of made you think, wow, this esports thing is really big, and within Logitech or personally, or?
So within Logitech, we originally we were one of the original founding sponsors of the CPL. That's back in 2000 or so. But there's been ebbs and flows in the esports space, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of come and it's kind of gone. But like many of my colleagues here, I've played games since the beginning. I even probably 15 or 17 years ago, I went to a movie theater, and we crafted a team together where we competed against a number of other teams where they had casters there, and it was an incredible experience. And we also didn't quite finish first, but we gave as good as we got for the most part. But for me, there's a couple a couple of stories. There's the first story about esports starting to develop, and then there's the moment when I thought that it had elevated enough that it was getting, news coverage more than just local coverage.
Yeah.
And for me, that was the League Championship Series when it was in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
It sold out the Staples Center inside of a day. And they had actual mass media coverage of that event, and that's when it, to me, really raised its level.
It was the first time that I got called up by a USA Today journalist to explain what the hell was going on in the Staples Center. Yeah, it was a big moment. Cool. And so if you look at esports a little bit, what is the definition of esports? How should we look at it? All the if there's 14 million viewers. They're into esports. So esports is broader. What's the definition of esports, and what different groups are there? How broad should we look at esports? Anybody want to fill something?
There we go. I think it's sort of different definitions within it. There's different segments, just as you would look at the gaming market. I think for esports, when you talk about sort of those professional gamers, the ones that get you glued to your computer or your mobile to watch it, watch them compete. It's a very small subset. It's sort of the world's best. But I think what's so unique about gaming and esports is that there's a broader competitive base beneath that, and that I think transcends multiple genres and multiple platforms and extends well into console, or extends more into mobile as well. So. The casual games, there's a competitive element to it, but to me, the term esports really just sort of fits the top of that pyramid, where you've got the world's best and the fans all around tuning in.
Yeah, the heroes. Does that play a role? The sort of heroes that the gamers are becoming in for a company like yours, Matt?
Yeah, it does. I mean, something really interesting about the aspirational nature and the aspirational story of somebody going from obscurity to the very top of the game. I mean, it's not just relegated to esports. I mean, that's sports.
Yeah.
Nike's entire marketing strategy is based on aspirational storytelling, if you really, pull all the layers away, and I think it's powerful. And I think as gamers, which I know up here we all are probably lifetime gamers, I think every one of us, and even if you're not a gamer and you grow up playing sports, if you're a human, no matter what you do, I think everybody in the back of their mind always aspires to be at some point in their life the best they could be, and then fantasizes about, well, what if? I mean, I think in this particular case, esports provides a modality for people, if they want to take gaming seriously, to go all the way. I know from a marketing and communication standpoint, I'm really interested in that. I mean, I think from a brand standpoint, our role is to really inspire and celebrate achievement. And so we're trying to do that throughout. I mean, as a brand, we do that for other sports as well, and I think there's no difference when we look at gaming. So I think the aspirational nature of it is very powerful, and it's very real in the sport.
Yeah, so that's a big factor. Vincent, what levels of involvement of Logitech have you considered for esports? Because considering all the different layers and things that you can do, what are the different ways that you have gone into esports, and what has the impact been of the various activities?
So for us, we started out with sponsorships of championship series and competitions and things like that, and that was fairly successful for us. But for Logitech being in a product category, we think of ourselves similarly to kind of the way Nike approaches it, right? We make something that enables and enhances the performance of the athletes. So in the case of esports, we started looking at global teams with global teams and global brands like Cloud9 and TSM and the Alliance. But the more layers we went through looking at these global brands, we also found that we really wanted to get a little further down into local brands. So we've just recently signed Millennium, which is essentially a French team, which gives us a great opportunity to engage with them France is a very important market for Logitech and many video game peripheral companies. So this gives us another vehicle and another way to do outreach to our consumers. And then the second part of interacting with these professional athletes is that these guys are really masters of their craft, and they have such high requirements and such high level needs for performance that we take their input on products that we haven't released to the public yet so that we can refine them and tune them so that when we do release a product, it has met their standard, and therefore it can be a wonderful product for anybody that competes at any level within the gaming segment.
Yeah. James, do you have a completely different approach to how you benefit from the esports?
I agree with Matt on the aspirational side of things. I think there's competitive gaming, and to your definition, there's competitive gaming, and then there's esports. And esports, like Craig said, implies a professional side of things. But coming out of the music industry, I make an analogy between the amateur gamer and the amateur musician, is that they both drive to their jobs at Starbucks wishing someone would pay them to play, right? And so amateur esports gives people an opportunity to reach those aspirational goals and the recognition that they crave, and I think that's important to gamers. They're a competitive group, and so for us, giving them a venue for them to reach for those aspirations is really important. I think that addresses your question.
Mm-hmm, yeah, no, perfectly. I'm satisfied. Yeah, and then for you, Craig, sort of moving towards how this all impacts or provides opportunities for anyone making games or publishing games. If you're a smaller developer or a smaller title, nowadays using a video stream, you can set up leagues. In what ways can smaller game brands sort of ride on that wave that we're experiencing now?
Yeah, I think Riot Games is actually a great example of that. They were an independent publisher, however many years ago, and I know us as a company, we kind of started working with them early, hosting just these online tournaments, and now they've, the player base has obviously exploded. They've developed a game that's perfect for esports, and it's filling stadiums. But if you look at it from the beginning and the journey that it takes, what's unique about gaming in general for anyone out there who has aspirations for their title to be that, is it all starts with a good game. It sounds cliche, but it really is that simple. You have a good game, you organize some competitions, people start competing, they start getting their friends to compete with them, and there's just sort of the human element of competition that Matt spoke to better to kind of aspire and drive to be more. And I know for ESL as a company, we kind of pride ourselves of having that path to pro. So kind of graduating those levels as the game and more importantly the community kind of matures and grows with it. But you're creating those tournaments and putting it out on Twitch and getting viewers, and just socially and organically it could grow with very little effort from there if it's you got the right magic.
Yeah, the tools out there that weren't there a couple of years ago that make it easier, and I think it's underestimated how much gamers like to share their stuff. Everybody knows that games video content was most popular on YouTube, rivaling music. And now it's exploding because you can stream it live, you can capture stuff. And I think that applies to maybe also to casual genres more than we might anticipate. And Matt, you're also moving into the casual esports arena. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah. If you pull back from the definition of esports being just competitive play, and you start to look at it as a lot of people playing together, and then leaderboard coming out of that for prizing, let's say. Well, then almost any game could be theoretically an esport. And so one of the things that we're interested in as we look at how our brand or our portfolio of brands faces games is something like, for example, a partnership we recently put together over in Europe with a company called Ubisoft that has a great dance game called Just Dance, which for us is really important because Just Dance is this ultimate nexus of music and movement and play. And for Coca-Cola, we're interested in an active, healthy living approach, but gaming. And when you put all that together with something like Just Dance, there you have people dancing together, and they can dance together for a common goal, or they can dance together for leaderboarding or whatever. And so, if that combination of ingredients are shaken up properly, then it's possible that in a way that could become, theoretically some sort of e-sport, I suppose. But I wouldn't necessarily put that on top of our communication. But I think we'll see more and more kinds of games leaning into this space, because esports and that kind of play creates multiple touch points and connection points. You've got play, which when I saw a raise of hands, some of you did with esports, but many of you didn't. When I asked about viewership, many more hands went up. And then there's also attendance. So you've got 3 kinds of consumption happening with this platform, which we've never really had before in gaming. And it creates a really broad and very unique and compelling platform for a lot of us up here. A lot of cottage industries come out of that. For a big brand like ours, we get sort of multiple ways to face it and multiple ways to bring value to the player and again celebrate.
Yeah. Anybody else want ideas about how these trends translate to other genres, other games, the broader impact? Ideas how a developer of a casual mobile game could benefit from this?
NVIDIA is very active in mobile technology development as well. So we're involved in phones, tablets. Today, we just announced the NVIDIA Shield tablet and controller. And it's exciting because gaming's happening now just outside of the house, right? It's on the go. And when there's major sponsors involved and you're reaching millions of people, I see casual gaming as probably a big beneficiary of the esports boom, and I think that you'll see competitive gaming on casual explode over the next decade.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, just one thing to add. I think also as you think of esports and these viewers or these players, it's broader. I mean, just up at the International, I love watching. Again, the highest Dota 2 or League of Legends, but you know what? When I'm on the airplane, I'm playing Candy Crush, and I've got 7 other games loaded on my iPad. So I think it's also not to forget that just because you're an esports fan or an advocate that you're not enjoying the other, genres or platforms for gaming.
Yeah, gamers are omnivores, right? I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
Gamers play whatever game is the hot title. They play it on whatever the platform that supports it best. They'll play it, based on the location that they're in, the amount of time that they have. That's how a gamer interacts with the games that they do. And in regards to a mobile space in an esport game, I mean, I think Blizzard's Hearthstone is a great example. I mean, that thing has taken off like wildfire.
I'm glad you said it. Somebody over here, this guy right here, held up his tablet and faced us with Hearthstone. Hearthstone's a great example of something that's really got a super easy entry to it. It's super simple to understand, and it's got a pretty soft ramp. And I think more and more games like that will bring a very very compelling a compulsion loop that is very difficult to put down but very easy to get into, and yet has a competitive model to it, will open up esports more and more. But as I think there are really, really amazing esports games that you're all aware of and we're talking about up here, but they're for more of a core player. And so I think over time, like these guys are talking about, as more and more games face like that game, like Hearthstone, it's a little bit easier ramp and entry point. We'll see the expansion of esports to the future, and I think that's going to open up again more and more broadcasts, more and more live events, and I'm hoping it gets wider. I want it to because I think it's a great culture. I think it's a great way for as a career game guy myself, like a lot of these guys up here. It's just another facet of our industry that feels fresh and I wouldn't say new. It's been around for over a decade, but it does. I mean, the rebirth of this thing does feel like we give ourselves another whole platform to explore and celebrate.
Yeah.
As players and makers.
Yeah. I've got a daughter of 10, and I think I'm going to push her to be the first pro gamer, just dance gamer. She's the only thing she does is dance. If you can make money with it, spark some ideas. Talk to her tomorrow. Just a last thought. We open it up for a couple of questions. Any remarks about where is this heading? So is it going to be? Does it have is it going to be identical or comparable to other big sports, or what would the difference still be that would set it apart? What will the future bring? How big is it going to be?
So one of the things that I think about is that there are globally there's regional sports, right? There's football, baseball, there's cricket, and things like that.
Soccer.
So I would say that soccer is one of the sports that is comparable to gaming, because gaming crosses all borders, it crosses all cultures. There's this common tapestry behind everybody who plays games. There's a shared experience, regardless of where you are in the world, because you're playing a very similar game, whether it's Dota or League of Legends or World of Warcraft or something like that. And it has the opportunity to definitely outpace more of the regional sports like the NFL or NBA.
And Gaelic football.
But football, soccer, right? Maybe not. That's the one sport that has a very similar, global tapestry to it.
It's taught in schools.
No, it's more. It crosses all borders. Gaming culture is completely regardless of borders, where sports are originated from a local culture often. So it might be even bigger. Any last thoughts before we open it up for questions about this future situation?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, we always say that esports it's really the sport of the digital generation. And if you think how young people are kind of consuming media and how they're interacting with things and with friends virtually and physically, we really view that esports is going to be the center of that. And again, there's sort of steps along the way and a place in the pyramid for everyone. But that top piece with the world's best gamers is just a really exciting one that we think is going to continue to grow, continue to drive viewership and engage people at different levels.
Okay, so the Olympic Games, after all, maybe. You never know. So we open it up for...
It's already starting, I mean,
Yeah.
there's been recognized for sports visas. So I think you are starting to see kind of this trend changing, and also as the younger generation is simply as the fact that people who grew up with it and understand it and know the culture, as they become in positions of influence, I think that's also going to help facilitate change culturally and also economically from the business side of things.
Yeah, questions? Okay, I'll repeat that question with that. What the opportunities are for brands, for sponsorships in all kinds of ways? That's the question. For advertisers?
Rough idea of what a advertiser might have to pay to sponsor a
Are you a sponsor yourself or potential sponsor?
potential. Yeah.
I'll answer it then.
Yeah.
No, I think what's unique is that it could be anything from a couple of $1,000s as a test bed. Obviously, some of them run up into the seven figures. So I know for us as a company, it's all about creating entry points and successful case studies and relationships. So just depends what you're looking to do.
But I think it is different. You can sponsor teams, you can sponsor a league, a tournament. You can also give free items, in-game items. And
You've seen different things. I mean, probably Logitech's got a robust history of seeding products with players, so it's as simple as that. NVIDIA's supporters of, leagues and events all around the world, teams as well. And you look at a Coca-Cola, like Matt mentioned, I mean, it's, the LCS is sort of up there on the top of it. So I think there's something for everyone within the ecosystem. It's just finding what the right platform is for your message.
Matt, could you maybe... Yeah, sorry, James?
I mean, it depends. I don't know the size of your business, but it can go as small as targeting Google Ads, right, to hit esports programming. So it doesn't have to be in the millions of dollars.
No. And Matt, what are two extremes? What Coke has done when it comes, and with whom did you arrange that partnership?
It's an interesting question. It's a tricky one because it's a marketeer question. And I think that there's a level of responsibility to your ad communication that determines what your approach is going to be, and then that determines the breadth of how your activation is going to look. Like anything, not just esports and gaming, but anything. And so it's really hard to answer. It's almost like asking how long's a piece of string. I mean, it just depends on what your goals are, what your product is, what your ad communication is, what you're trying to elicit out of a response from the player, and what really ultimately what you're trying to do. We approach it a very unique way. I am not interested in sponsoring anything. I'm interested in partnerships. I feel like the value that we get through real partnership it far exceeds for our brand in this particular space. And so that's what we do, and I'm really satisfied with it, and I think it comes across authentic, and that's important to me personally because I've been in the game space for a long time, and I think as a player myself and as a consumer of games, I don't want to feel like I'm getting now slapped in the face with ad marketing communication all the time in this precious world of gaming, right, in esports.
I know company like Unilever just sometimes just targets the Twitch channels because their audience is valuable, very simple, regular stuff. And I've seen other guys, the primary objective of the deal is to create branded content because esports creates an enormous amount of cool content. So if your brand wants to have a lot of content to distribute, then that's also a way of doing it. Yeah, a question here.
I was just curious if there is any as far as viewership in esports, what genres occupy the pie chart, if you will. Like, for example, racing. What percentage of esports viewership is that something Twitch tracks?
Well, no, it's in terms of players and views, if racing also is up there. And it used to be one of the key things, just like Guitar Hero used to be in esports. But I think racing has dropped a little bit down the charts since the, Dota 2, StarCraft, League of Legends push and the hard competition that it provides. So any comments about genres and differences with the past? So it's branching out to dancing, I understand today. But I think racing...
I didn't say that. No. I did not
I made another mistake.
I think right now, all I can talk about is right now. I mean, right now, the top probably 3 esports games that get the lion's share of the viewership, are not racing. They're MOBA games. They're multiplayer battle games. They're typically team-based, so they end up playing like a real sport, and in that sport you've got different positions that people play, so you have specialists and there's a lot of strategy communication, but it's played like a sport. And I think when you get multiple teammates playing on a team and each one of them has a specialty and then you pit those teams against each other, it just seems to work given the current taste of viewership. Now, that's not to say that in the future racing may not make a big comeback. I mean, who knows? But if you just look at the data, you were talking about pie charts. I mean, I would say, I don't know, guys. I mean, I don't know if you agree or not, but it seems like the lion's share of it is around MOBAs right now, I would say.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and RTS, that's true. So and maybe some FPS stuff. So you've got like first-person shooter stuff, but racing's for whatever reason probably not in the top. Taking over most of the pie.
I think it has a lot to do with the tools that the publishers build into it too. So spectator tools, replay files, those things that esports professionals use to create their production. And so the MOBAs and StarCraft as an RTS all have elegant esports tools, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the crux of building a spectatorship platform.
Yeah, maybe it's also down to the fact that there's not a real big title that is free to play, runs games as a service, and has a large community around it. Most of the big racing games are still the traditional games. And
I think from a viewership perspective, I think any traditional sport as a video game is going to pale in comparison to sort of the real thing. I think there's an element of fantasy that's exciting from a MOBA that you can't replicate elsewhere. Whereas if you're a racing fan, I think you're going to prefer to watch a Formula One or a NASCAR because it's sort of that real experience.
Shall we take one last question?
Yeah, this kind of builds on what you were just talking about with viewership. I'm trying to get a sense of what the key motivating factors are for people to view an esport, and I'm curious if you sense that's any different from just being a gamer, and then 2 maybe from traditional sports viewership?
Well, if you look at the data, the Super Bowl is an awesome event, and it gets about 111, 113 million viewers a year, and it's pretty much stays stable at that. You take League of Legends, for example, and it's in the 30s, let's say, right? But then if you put a gender and an age split on that, say male, say 16, 26, 7, 8, 30, whatever, Super Bowl, comes down to, say, less than 10. And yet, Legends comes down high 20s. So in terms of viewership, it depends on what lens you want to put over it. I think today we live in the world, I'm speaking from a marketeer standpoint, in terms of efficiency with brand message and laser precision marketing, you put the filters over the top of one of these things, and it's really very surprising what the numbers are and how those numbers stack up to other traditional sports. I won't include football. I won't include European. I won't include soccer and FIFA because FIFA gets 3 billion people. It's like half the world watch the World Cup. So I kind of keep that stat out of it. But I think if you look at other major sports, college football, baseball, the Stanley Cup, things like that, and you compare it to. And by the way, I love sports, and I love traditional sports too. I'm a fan, and I love to play and all that. But I think so. I'm not picking on them, but I am being pretty clear that when you start to lay over certain age splits, gender splits, and you start comparing, esports to active, sort of on pitch sports, it's pretty mind blowing how powerful this medium is as an industry, frankly.
Yeah. On that note, I would like to thank the panel. I know how busy these guys are, so please give a big round of applause for the esports panel today.